Hello there, everybody. Going up a little bit late today because that vaccine booster shot really took me out. But I'm very excited to be here for some spooky season sweet wine with Jeff Harding. Let me just get him in here. Ay, ay, ay. There he is.
Hello, sir.
I am so sorry to be tardy to the party.
No worries. I'm glad you got a booster, you said?
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't have any reaction to mine. I got mine a little while back, and I didn't have such a reaction, but I'm glad you got it. That's a good thing.
I've had a pretty mild reaction to all three shots, but this one definitely just made me tired.
Sometimes your body just needs it, so I'm glad you got some rest at least.
For sure, for sure. How are you today?
I'm good. I'm good. I'm having this weird thing where even though I have Do Not Disturb on my phone, I get texts and I just got a phone call, and I'm like, it's being weird. I don't know, phone updates and stuff.
That does happen. That
Yeah,
definitely does happen.
it's freaky.
You're trying to go live, can't go live in peace, right?
Exactly. And I don't know if you've done more lately than I have that sometimes a phone call will like kick you off live. I've had that
Really,
happen
that
with
hasn't
guests.
happened to me.
So yeah, so I just get nervous. But anyways, hey, Carrie just joined. Hi, Anna. It's weird being on the receiving end of this to be the guest. So I'm a little off center as well. So anyways.
It feels like it's going to be an off-center day for me anyway. Welcome, everyone. I am delighted to be here with friend of Sommation, Jeff Harding, to talk about a topic that I know he's very passionate about. It's spooky season, and for that, that also means sweet wine season for you, right?
Exactly. I have always been a fan of sweet wine, and I can tell that story. But more recently, just I've been at the Waverly Inn for so long, and one of the best things to do in New York is the Halloween parade. Sorry for the traffic noise. The parade always ends close enough to Waverly that we get a little craziness, but not in the thick of it. So it's kind of nice. And so I always do something around Halloween, and I just call it Sweet Wine Halloween because years ago I wrote an article. I used to write for Star Chefs on a regular basis, and it was Halloween, and I didn't want to do everybody tries to pair candy with sweet wine, which is disgusting.
Yeah, it's gross.
It's gross. Just because the rule, your wine has to be sweeter than the pairing generally. So I did this article, and I was kind of thinking about, if you like Snickers, then do maybe a tawny port or something like that. And since the kids get to dress up, maybe adults can have a sweet wine Halloween and have a glass of sweet wine while the kids are trick-or-treating. And then I kind of paired a costume with each, and my brain is so dead this morning, I'm gonna have to look at my notes. So I wrote, if you like Pedro Jimenez, dress up as a Spanish pirate. If you maybe like Tokay was like the wine of kings and the king of wines, and dress up like Louis XIV or somebody from, the royal palace anywhere. Sauterne is in Southwest France, and at the time, I said dress up as Three Musketeers, but the Three Musketeers are actually closely related to Bergerac, where there's Montbazillac and Saussignac. And then
Right.
Commander Ria is so forgotten, and it's from Cyprus, and it's fortified and aged, and I was thinking dress up like a Templar Knight. And so then I started doing a thing at the Waverly where I was like, well, let's do something at Waverly. And 2 years ago, what I really wanted to do is get other people involved and have other restaurants. And this is when Stephanie was at Portali, and I thought, oh, that's close enough. Maybe people could stop by her for a drink and stop by me for a drink and kind of make a little adult trick-or-treating thing. And it was hard to get people to play along. And then last year, I can't remember the timeline of it all, but Berenice Lertone, who's the owner the owner of Chateau Clemence in Sauterne, she was in town. I think that was pre-pandemic, and she was here for the parade. Her son was out trick-or-treating because he'd never done it before, and so she hung out with me. And then the following year, I think that would be last year, she did like this crazy 10 days on her Instagram of people, her staff dressing up, and they did a great photo shoot. And it was like her accountant, and they made a joke about, you know, spooky accountant stuff, and the guy and the vineyard manager was doing something, you know, and they had these great pictures, and the last picture was them all in the salon at the chateau in their costumes with like a big set design. It was incredible. So
Cool.
That's kind of my recap of what I've been doing with Sweet Wine Halloween and where it's come from, and hopefully continued. I try to do it every year. We'll see.
Hell yeah. So what's going on this year? Do you have like special bottles that you're pouring by the glass, or like what's the story?
Well, there's a thing coming up next week with Bordeaux that is promoting these big bottles, and they're trying to show off next generation winemakers to show that they're relevant, that they're innovative and exciting, and they're doing these big bottles. And so I got a 3 liter. I got three liters of Sauterne, which I'm kind of terrified of.
Yeah.
I actually ate dinner once at Chateau Laforet-Périgueux, and they have a restaurant. It's they're owned by Lalique, or the same owner as Lalique, so I think it's called Lalique. I can't remember when I'm on these things. And he had a 3 liter of Sauterne. He was walking around pairing, and he put it with this amazing lamb dish. And I was like, okay, how long does it take you to pour a 3 liter? And he's like, about a week, you know, because it's a Sauterne restaurant. So I'm hoping I can get through it in a week. So I decided to open it up a little bit early. The official Bordeaux big bottle launch is on Monday, and don't tell anybody, but I guess it's public now. I'm opening it on Sunday, and I'm gonna kind of be at the front door and offer a nip to the parents who come by with their kids, because we get trick-or-treaters in the neighborhood too.
That is adorable.
I you know, parents should, it's hard work taking your kids out trick-or-treating.
It absolutely
But then I realized too that that we have the outdoor seating, and it's a perfect venue to come and have dinner and hang out and just watch the shenanigans of the costumes and the trick-or-treaters in the West Village. And so I haven't been doing my regular wine events that I did before pandemic, but I have an email list. And so I wrote to everybody, I'm like, hey, I'm opening this big bottle, probably some other cool things, and just encouraging people to pop by and have a drink, ideally a sweet wine drink, and do it that way. So it's a little more low key, but it's also kind of like, it's so crazy right now with, I don't know, work has been nuts lately.
I'm sure. So what's the Sauterne that you're opening up on Sunday?
It is a Chateau d'Arche 2009, and I put a picture in my story last night if people want to see. A 3 liter is huge. It's only a double magnum, Jeroboam. It's big. It's like, it's a 2-hander, and ideally when we do by the glass for the red and the white, we're probably going to use decanters because it's a little unwieldy. But it's also fun to walk up to a table with a gigantic bottle, so we'll see.
It's one of my favorite things to do. It can be a little daunting, but when you pull off that pour tableside with a 3 liter, people go nuts.
Yeah, but I'm also usually, you know, a Sauterne pour is 2 ounces, and I like a big glass, a regular, you know, we use AP glasses at work, but I like a big glass because you stick your nose in there and get the aroma, and so I'm kind of gonna be pouring just 2 ounces out of this big jug, so we'll see how it goes.
Yeah, I thought about that. The dessert wine pour being 2 ounces, that's an extra layer of complication.
Exactly. Exactly. So we'll see. But I also do I try to incorporate sweet wine into cocktails at the bar. Mm-hmm. And I have, I was at Chateau Yquem years ago, and when you go there for like lunch or dinner, they greet you with a cocktail it's basically declassified Yquem. They don't tell you where it's from, but if their wine is not up to snuff, they will declassify it and sell it off, and other people can bottle it like negociants. And that's why you see a lot of random Sauternes you never hear of. But so they keep some of that, and they serve it over ice with an orange twist, and you do, you know, what do you call it, express the twist and rim the glass. So what you're doing is you're amping up the aroma, and I think the cold kind of dampens the sweet. And so it's really just that, because people always ask what's in this, and I'm like, it's just Sauterne. But I pour that, you put it over ice, and it's one of those things you can always keep in your house for a quick cocktail if somebody comes over. It's a great pairing. It's a great way to use that wine. And pro tip, because Carrie just commented on here, I like her pro tips on her Instagram. A second wine from a noted Sauterne house is generally less botrytized grapes. So they will include regular grapes in the press, whether it's fermenting or blending. So it's a little brighter, a little younger, and that works a little bit better in a Sauterne cocktail. But we're going to be doing it with 09 Chateau d'Arche for the next 3 times 3 liters worth of time. Which
That's
may
great.
be one.
I mean, that's a lot of Sauterne to get through, but if anyone can, I'm certain that you can.
It's going to be a challenge. We're going to see. We're going to have a little contest with the staff and see who can sell the most.
Other than putting it in like just over ice with an express peel, which sounds like the perfect aperitif.
Yeah, it's great.
How have you incorporated sweet wine into cocktails?
I've used it in a white Negroni with white vermouth and gin. I think is just what I used. I have made popsicles. I've not done it at the restaurant, but just take Sauterne and melon and puree it and put it into popsicles. And then I'm trying to think of other. Oh, there's a. I've done it with just club soda and a twist for like at home. It's a little light and a little simple for a cocktail to drink at a restaurant, to pay for.
Yeah.
But it's a nice way to drink it at home. What'd you say?
I said, but at home, that sounds like delightful as basically a soda. If you're not looking to like get drunk alone.
Exactly. And
no shade if you are.
Well, exactly. And those, I have a bunch of, my dad got me paranoid during the pandemic that water was going to be scarce or something. So I have all these cans of, you buy, it's just club soda with like a little grapefruit flavoring or lime or something like that. And that works actually well too, because you're kind of adding a little flavor when you're diluting the flavor of the Sauterne. So
I love that.
Just because we're talking about sweet wine, and I want to mention, and I talk about cocktails, I also make a Maury Manhattan. Maury is a fortified wine from one of the villages in Roussillon that makes a Vin du Naturel. And if you get the right ones, you can find, like right now I'm using one from Tuna Vin Calvé from 1998, and it's still inexpensive enough that I can use it in a cocktail and still make money as a business. But it's complex enough that I can sub it out for a vermouth. And so I basically just use a regular Manhattan recipe, but sub in Maury, and then a brandied cherry as a garnish. And that's another way to incorporate sweet wine into your
that sounds delicious. I love those wines from down south, the Maury's especially, because you're right. Like you can get older examples that are much more complex and that are much more interesting for not a lot of money.
Exactly. And I was just in Portugal, and so we had a lot of white port and tonic, which is going to show up on my list again very soon, even though it's more like refreshing and not wintry. But I learned about white port a long time ago, and there's a lot more cocktails using dark port and tawny port. But Rivesaltes is also something from the southwest of France that I've fallen in love with, and again, very cheap. And so I had that with tonic. But now that it's cooled off, I'm about to switch that over to a hot toddy, just because people are sitting outside, it's cold. And Rivesaltes is a nice, if you get an older concentrated enough one, it's really good with just a hot toddy mix. Just use your own recipe.
That's cool. I dig that. I did a cocktail at a restaurant years ago that was essentially a gimlet, but instead of simple syrup, I used LBV port.
Wow.
And it was gorgeous. Like people went nuts over it.
Did it make the gimlet would have been very purple, right then?
Yep.
Wow.
Yeah. So it looked really striking, especially like through candlelight.
Yeah.
And it was very, very easy to drink. I did it with vodka because I wanted to have a vodka cocktail on the list.
Yeah.
And it sold. I couldn't keep up after a while.
That's
ordering.
really cool.
Yeah.
And I got to say that there's something about the Sauterne cocktail or the Maury Manhattan. You can then go back to the table after dessert, and they're much more receptive to trying the sweet wine just by itself because they're intrigued by how it works in a cocktail. And I just got to give a shout out to Renee Nicole out at Nopa in San Francisco. She was on my Portugal trip. She's like, shh, don't talk about Maury. Talk about port. Talk about Maury.
Port is one of those areas of production that I like. I love to drink, but it's sort of a hole in my theory knowledge. I don't know enough about it. I need to really dive in. I've been saving a bottle of birth year port downstairs.
Oh, nice.
That I'm not sure when I'm going to open it, but I'm sure that whenever I choose to, it's going to be amazing.
That's very cool. I am by no means a scholar on the subject, but I will say that we have seen now dry still red wine from the Douro, and a lot of the chateaux in Sauternes are also making dry still wine, and that is a reaction to the market, that they're not selling as much sweet wine as they used to, and those wines are fantastic. I'm a big supporter of those, but these sweet wines are such a thing that they've fallen out of favor that, I mean, it's such a part of history because, you know, sugar is a preservative. It was a way to make wines last and travel, and that's very often why the royalty drank them. And they're going to go away if we don't support them. And so I sometimes am afraid that winemakers are not loving us when we use their king of their produce in a cocktail. But if it turns on a customer, I think we're justified.
I fully agree with that. And speaking of the history of sweet wine, I pulled a couple of bottles out of my cellar. I'm not going to open them right now because I think it might be a problem with the booster shot. But I grabbed this guy, the Klein Constantia, the Constance. These wines. This was actually a gift to me from a regular at a restaurant I worked at about 5 years ago. This is the '08 vintage. You know, I know that this wine is basically bulletproof. I can open it when. But the history is pretty stunning, and the fact that it's, you know, it's been being produced for so long and now is again is pretty magical.
Yeah, I interviewed the winemaker there on my vineyard chat, and I really regret the opening. He was outside, and we had such a stunning view, but I couldn't keep it. He had to go inside to his Wi-Fi. So it's a gorgeous place to check out, and I can't even remember. This is my brain fog. If that is a botrytis wine, it is, isn't it? Or it's late harvest.
It is late harvest. To my knowledge, it is not a botrytis wine.
That sounds right. What else do you have over there?
I've got a bottle of 98 Corcovale Vinsanto, and Vinsanto has been like I have accidentally in my career fallen in love with Italian wines. You wouldn't think that it would be the area of expertise, but it kind of is. And Vinsanto, of all sweet wines, is the one that I drink the most of, by some wide margin. It's accessible in price, and relatively easy to find. And if you get Vinsanto from a Chianti producer that you really love, be assured that you're probably going to love it.
Yeah, that's,
and I love,
you know,
the
I am not, again, I'm much more focused in France, and so I don't work with so much in Italy. But there's a Vignonesi is a producer of Vino Nobile just down the road from Brunello, and they make Vinsanto, but they also make, and I'm gonna butcher the pronunciation, I can't even remember. It's basically Vinsanto made from red wine from the Sangiovese. It's it's Eye of the Pigeon.
Ocio del Pernice.
There you go. And I was blown away because I thought it was like a, when I first tasted it, I thought it was almost like a Vin de Noix, the walnut liqueur you get down in the Dordogne or in Austria. It's so nutty and rich, but it's so elegant. This one is not cheap, and their regular Vinsanto is fairly pricey too. But
Those wines, oh my God, those wines are so rare too. The Ocio del Pernice wines, you don't see them from every producer, and whatever producers make them, you know, if you're lucky, 100 cases.
Yeah, and I'm sure that it's a passion project for them. It takes 10 years at least to make them, and I bet you they're not even making any money on them. They just do it for the love.
100%. For the love, for the hospitality when people come to the property to be able to pour them sweet. And I'm here to tell you that there was a restaurant here in Philly that I loved very much, and they did the classic Vinsanto with biscotti thing. That's just pure joy. That's just nice. A wonderful thing.
Yeah.
But speaking of Italian sweet wines, this is one that captured my my attention early in my career, and I've managed to not drink this one bottle in my career. I don't know if you know Le Vigna di Zamo. They make
No.
some really fun, easy white wines out of Friuli. They make a Refosco too, but this one is their Vola Vola, which doesn't get produced anymore. It's a blend of Verduzzo, Picolite, and Sauvignon Blanc,
Oh,
and
wow.
it's beautiful. It's absolutely beautiful. It's not a botrytis, it's a late harvest, just like the Vin de Constance. But they have since diverted the Picolite into the varietal Picolite that they make,
Okay.
which is much, much more expensive. And I really, it's a shame that this wine can't be found anymore.
Yeah, that's crazy.
It's like gorgeous, bright, high tone citrus. Um, it's kind of everything that I want.
I love it. Have you had I should have made a list of these beforehand, but it's the little island off of Sicily that uses Zabibo. It rolls off your tongue if you can remember it, but I had it and it's such an apricot flavor. And we had a duck confit on the menu at the time. And it was incredible together. It's like I try to tell people that like with pairing, very often with like a pork, you'll have a little like a marmalade or a chutney with like fruit and spice, and or even candied fruit goes with like a duck confit because it's salty. And I'm just telling people that those wines really can sub in for the little garnish or dollop of a sauce.
I absolutely agree. Yeah, I think duck is the easiest one to go with, and it's the easiest one for people to wrap their heads around when you want to pair sweet wine with savory food,
Hmm.
because people think of duck as a sweeter meat, pork too. Um, that
Yes,
is a tough
very.
sell.
It is, but you kind of got to give it to them and then make a
Oh,
lover for
Perry,
life.
yeah,
Perry's got it.
Pantelleria is
Pantelleria, there you go. And
yeah.
Donna Fugata does make one. Yeah. Um, it's really awesome. One of my favorites also, you must have I'm sure everybody knows Crocker. The great wine, which is not like, but if you go a little bit south of where they are down to it's called Rooster Ausbruck, the lake. Oh God, I can't even pronounce it. It's the lake in Austria that's very shallow and very salty. And
I'm
Roost,
going to attempt to
there you
pronounce
go.
it. I think I know how to do it. It's Neusiedlersee.
There you go. That's exactly it. And there's a town called Roost, I believe, on the west side of
Yep.
that makes Rooster Ausbruck. That is for me. It is botrytis because that lake is very shallow, so it changes temperature a lot, and so fog
Yep.
comes off. And if you ever get to Austria, go to Roost. There's like storks in the chimneys, and it's a gorgeous town. And these wines are so complex, and again, very very inexpensive. And it's one of my favorite botrytis places.
Yeah,
I actually once my visit there, the winemaker Peter Shandel, I believe, he said botrytis is a diva. She comes when she wants, and that's how in Sauternes they
yeah,
will do up to 7 passes through the vineyard because you have to just wait until the time is right.
absolutely. Yeah, one of my probably my favorite, excuse me, producer of Rooster Ausbruck is Heidi Schrock.
Heidi Schrock is my favorite. She's amazing.
Definitely the queen of the area, and
Yeah,
those wines are unbelievable. And the Ausbruck is not cheap, but it is worth it.
yeah, it is. But it's still cheaper than a lot of like for what it is for like
Yes,
world class, best in the world. I just realized I have a bruise on my head. I don't know what that's from. Our basement at the Waverly, because it's an old building, has low ceilings, and I'm constantly hitting air vents and stuff.
I live in Philadelphia. I am very accustomed to the low ceiling in the basement. It's
Exactly.
and as a 6'1" guy, it is a problem.
It's really bad, and I've been there long enough that I know where I need to duck. But the minute you like take your glasses off because of the mask, which is a joy
Yep.
of this season, or you're carrying a 3-liter bottle that throws off your equilibrium, you start hitting things, and that's clearly the evidence. But while we're talking about botrytis, I want to also mention places like Montbazillac and Saussignac
Yes.
in Bergerac. It's a different river, but it's the same concept. Cold water and warmer air makes fog, makes botrytis. And when you drive through Bergerac, it's rolling hills. And I was unfortunate enough to have a 7 o'clock flight out of Bordeaux. So I was up driving through Bergerac at 5 a.m. and you see the fog, which was, I got to say, it was magical and very worth getting up at 5.
I
And
was
then
gonna say, yeah, like if I had to be up at 5 in the morning ever, that would be a reason to be.
Exactly. And then Serrance, which is just next to Sauternes, Chateau de Serrance. I interviewed her. They make fantastic wine. And then in Cadillac, I think Chateaubriand is one of the most loved Bordeaux houses in New York because a lot of people have visited them, and they're the most warm, inviting people. And they're a Lebanese family who Lebanon is they're the warmest people I've ever encountered, and they invite you into their home and make this a great meal. And I interviewed her, and she talks about pairing some of Lebanese food with their sweet wine. And she often posts pictures from their back terrace. It overlooks the river, and you can see the fog rolling in, and it's just the most zen thing to she posts videos. I put a few in reels that I put some crazy music to, but it's another magical place that makes sweet wine from botrytis. And then Tokai. We haven't really talked about Tokai, but it's an incredible place too.
Yeah. We all, we study it as wine people, and we try to taste it when we can, but the wines are a little bit scarce or expensive.
Yeah.
But they can transport you. Those are really powerful.
Yeah.
Powerful wines.
I've never been there, but again, they're making dry wine too now. But I've had 5 Petunios, which I have at the restaurant, and they're not cheap, but not terribly expensive. But I've never tried I think it's a 6 Petunias that you drink out of the spoon because it's so expensive.
Is what they call that.
There you go.
And yeah, I haven't tried it either. I've only seen it from afar. I hear it's a magical thing, and it's so high in sugar that the yeast is only ever able to get it up to like 3% alcohol.
Isn't that crazy?
Which is, you're dealing with a syrup at that point.
Yeah.
But I would love to have the opportunity to try it.
I know. Any Tokai producers out there, let's talk.
Yeah, there's unfortunately a stunning lack, and I think it's part of the global zeitgeist where we don't drink as much sweet wine, but there's not a huge amount of sweet wine coming out of places in the New World like North America, South America. Obviously, there's constants coming from South Africa, but not a ton of stuff coming from there. There's a little bit coming out of Australia.
Yeah.
But do you have any favorite New World sweet wines?
I gotta say that I think it's young enough, and it's more people. A lot of people make one and try to participate, but I feel like these old classic regions, they made what they could from what they had and elevated it to a world-class thing. And Carrie's very right. There's a refined nuance to drinking and enjoying sweet wine. It's very true. It's like vino di meditazione in Italian. It's like wines, they're so complex. But there you go. Elk Cove does make a sweet wine.
They do, and it's very good.
I haven't come across too many. There, Ren and Nicole saying Literai. So I know there's some good ones out there, and California is doing a lot of late harvest. My friend Nico in Gaillac makes a great wine from like Loin de Loy and some of those crazy grapes they have in. But he literally trims a vine down to like 1 or 2 bunches and puts a little clothespin on the base stem of the cluster so no more moisture can get through. And then that makes it dry longer and faster on the vine. So he doesn't make a lot of it, obviously, but I have some at the restaurant. You'll have to try it when you come by. He makes a crazy thing, and so just another rando way of making sweet wine. But late harvest is generally what you get in the New World, and I haven't come across any that I'm crazy about, like the ones we've talked about, but I'm always on the lookout.
Carrie figured out my ruse here. My ruse was to start talking about Finger Lakes.
Tell us about that.
Because there are a couple of producers up there, and it's very, very similar to what you see in the old world. Like they make a tiny amount of sweet wine, and it's for hospitality. I know that Nancy at Red Tail Ridge.
I was going to say hers is fantastic. That's probably the best one I've had in America.
It's unreal. It's so good.
And it's botrytis too.
And it's a botrytis Riesling. And I can't remember. Carrie is pointing out Cab Franc. Someone out there was making a late harvest Cab Franc that was stunning. Okay. But speaking of Cab Franc, in Enniskillen in Ontario, it's an ice wine Cab Franc that is honestly one of the best sweet wines I've ever had.
And it's a red wine from a sweet.
So it's an ice wine, so it kind of comes out rosé.
Okay.
And it's stunning. It is also not cheap. I mean, $100 for a 375
Wow.
is a lot. But it's beautiful. They make both Vidal and Cab Franc, and it's this. Our friend Kelby at Red Newt Cellars makes a variety of sweet wines. He's actually got aging an Oloroso style Concord.
Wow.
That's in barrel in the cellar that I had to check in on while I was working harvest there, and it's shocking. I think it's 8 years into aging, and you can still tell that it's Concord. But I'm interested to see when Kelby makes the decision to bottle and sell it.
What's the color of that? Is it pressed really quickly, or is there some skin contact color from it?
I mean, at this point, it's brown.
It is. Okay. Wow.
Yeah.
Well, anything Kelby does, I'm down to. Yeah, exactly. First of all, Carrie did mention Casa Larga, and she's like, "You had to check in on," in quotes. Exactly.
Yeah, I had to. I was given an order by the people I was working for. Go check
He's got it in writing.
Yeah, there is some really great sweet wines happening up there. Obviously, Herman J. Weimer. I don't think they do a botrytis, but they do a number of different late harvest ones, all based on Riesling. And then the ones at Red Newt are also all based on Riesling if they're not hybrids. And I think we're going to start seeing some more experimentation with hybrids, both on the dry and on the sweet side.
Okay.
And I'm very excited for that too.
But there's not a lot of botrytis up there. And Nancy does get it occasionally, and I think she's such a master that she knows how to do it, but I don't think it's very common up there, is it?
The closer you are to the lake, it's this catch-22, because the closer you are to the lake, it's sort of, those are the best sites for dry wine, but those are also those sites that you could get botrytis if you left it. So there's a small block in what's called the Tango Oaks Vineyard. It's east side Seneca, very close to Red Newt Cellars. That Kelby lets go full botrytis, but he does it into what he calls a noble dry, which for me tastes very much like Smaragd Vacau Riesling. But those grapes are fully botrytis and beautiful.
Okay.
And they create this wine that is like 15% alcohol and kind of crazy.
Wow. That's cool though. I need to dive back into those because I had forgotten about Finger Lakes would be the place to do it. Carrie's asking if that's Sumo Rosé sweet wine from Spain. I don't know what that is.
I mean, I'm in. Anytime someone pours me a Sumo, I get it's usually something great. Whenever it makes its way over to the States. Yeah. I'm 100% down if you've got a bottle, Carrie.
Yeah, exactly. I have to check that out. I don't even know that. That's not in my radar. What else? Did we cover everything, Jamie?
I think we got there. Unless you have any final thoughts on, favorite sweet wines or ways to present sweet wine.
I did want to say that so often, it's kind of annoying. So many people, you walk the table, they're like, "We don't want sweet." I'm like, my wine list is a classic wine list. It's dry. I don't think anybody's going to give you a sweet wine.
Yep.
I know there are some spoofulated wines that come across sweet, but Americans think they don't like sweet wine, but they actually do. There is a fair amount of sugar in California Cabernet, and there's a sweetness that makes that lush and rich. There's nothing wrong with that, but
it's also a fair amount of sugar in white bread. Just so that we're all clear, white bread has plenty of sugar in it. Americans, you like sugar. Stop lying.
Exactly. And then when you go into cocktails and cosmopolitans, anytime you've got lemon or lime in your cocktail, you have to have a lot of sugar to counter that. And that's why skinny margaritas have gotten wise to that Americans are teenagers, exactly, with their palates, which we do need to reframe that. But so people don't think about how much sugar they're drinking in their margaritas. And this, sugar does stimulate your palate, just like salt. It is a good aperitif. People forget about sweet wine as an aperitif. And I just want to remind people, they're afraid of it. And it's like, try it. Try it with like, have a Sauterne with some corn nuts at home one night, and or Sauterne with Doritos. I was turned on to a little Sauterne house in Barsac. When we tasted at their little tasting room, they broke out some salt and vinegar potato chips. And to me, it is the best pairing in the world. Sauterne and salt and vinegar potato chips is fantastic. I think, Carrie, you have tried it. Yeah, I've done it a few places. But Doritos is a close second, particularly with Chateau Clements. Cool Ranch Doritos, sorry.
Another quick snack food pairing, Vinsanto with tortilla chips and salsa.
Oh.
It's wonderful.
Okay, I'm going to look for that one. But yeah, those kind of things. It's like I just turned a few friends on to Sauterne with oysters. Again, I think you need Atlantic oysters. It was a classic pairing in the late 1800s. You kind of need Atlantic oysters because they're saltier, and you just think salt and sweet. And it's a magical thing. So I just encourage people to try it and not be closed-minded about it, and don't think you don't like sugar, because we do.
Silly. We're biologically built to like sugar.
Programmed to like it, so admit it and enjoy it.
Yes. I think that's a good place to stop. Jeff, thank you for your patience in my grogginess this morning.
Oh, it's my pleasure. It's really nice. We haven't actually, you and I talked like this for a half an hour, so it's been a delight.
Yeah. It's been such a joy. And to talk about sweet wine, which also is a passion of mine. I absolutely love it.
So raise a toast on Halloween and encourage your friends to drink sweet wine for Halloween.
Absolutely. You can catch Jeff this weekend pouring from a giant bottle of Sauterne at the Waverly Inn. You can catch the whole Sommation team next week. We're doing a Burgundy takeover next week, so that's going to start off with me and Bruno on Monday. We're very excited to talk about and drink Burgundy, as most Soms are. So that's what we've got to look forward to. Everyone have yourselves a wonderful day. Cheers.
All right. Take care, man.